The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod and we're webcasting to you live from the Center for Autism and Related Disorders headquarters in Tarzana, California. It's Tuesday, so thrilled to be here with you. We're now well into May and it's an exciting month around here. I always think of May as the beginning of a new year. I know that it's not, but in a lot of ways it is. Spring is out, so there's new life everywhere. We've just gone through April, Autism Awareness, Action, Advocacy Month, and now we're in May, and it always feels like, and for some people it's a fiscal new year, and it's a new day, it's a new page, right? Clean slate. We get to start over and decide what we want to do with it, and that's always a good thing, right? When you look at things, fresh eyes, new perspectives, right? So that's what we're doing here. But we will be with you live for the next 2 hours talking about autism from a 360-degree perspective. We know that if you're coming to this show, that either you or someone you love is on the autism spectrum and you want to help to create progress in all areas. Whether you're a parent, teacher, practitioner, as I said, or if you yourself are the person who is on the autism spectrum, we know that you've got a large life to lead and you've got things that you want to accomplish and you've got potentially some obstacles in your way and you want to make some progress on those. Well, so happy to have you here because that's what we're all about here. And Emily's going to show you some of the different ways, because this show is meant to be interactive. We want you to interact. Emily's going to show you some of the different ways that you can interact. I will remind you that our homepage is autism-live.com. When you go there, you'll see there are lots of things to do, not the least of which you can check out the blog on that site. You can also sign up for our newsletter, and there's a lot of reasons why you're going to want to sign up for the newsletter now to be prepared for what's coming. I'll tell you more about that later. But you can also be watching the show and interacting with the show. So you see there's a desktop there, there's a computer screen. If you click on the triangle on the computer screen, you can be watching the live show if it's the right window of time, or you can watch the most recently recorded live show. And then to the side of that, there are a series of white boxes. The first one says Shannon is answering right now. And then below that, it says your question. Go ahead and put your cursor there and start typing and hit enter. It will show up here on my screen. There's a little bit of a lag, which is why I always remind you, make sure you ask your questions early in a segment. I always feel sad when you guys ask a question and it comes in a minute after we've said goodbye to the guest. It bums me out. I want to give you that instant gratification, and if the lag prevents me from doing that, it bums me out. We need technology to work for us, not against us, right? So ask your question early. That's my point for this. And then we have an opportunity to talk to you in real time in some cases. A lot of you write in when you're watching the recorded show, and that's great too. Just make sure that you reference what it is that you're seeing. Sometimes somebody will say, I'd like more information about what he's talking about, and I don't know which he, right? And I don't know how to get back a hold of you, because this feature is completely anonymous. And we like it that way because sometimes you want to ask a question and you don't want to say who you are. I can understand that completely. But if you do want us to get back to you specifically with something outside of this format, then make sure that you include information about how to get back to you. You can still stay pretty anonymous, right? Emails can be very anonymous. But we will not even share your email. We won't share any of your information with the folks at home. We will keep you anonymous to the world at large. All right, I do remind you at the start of the show that while we have a great deal of experts on the show and we provide lots of information, I am not one of the experts on the show. I'm a parent. And I'm a former teacher. My son was diagnosed with autism at the age of 2.5, and he is doing splendidly. He's getting ready to turn 11. I can't even believe it, how quickly time goes. But he's in a completely included 5th grade, excelling and excited about what comes next. He is completely verbal. We just took him to a party on Saturday, and I was amazed at how well he held his own in conversations mostly with adults, right? But he, holds his own conversation with kids his age too. It's kind of amazing because he was a kid that we weren't sure if he was ever going to be able to have a conversation. And there he is. And I know that that's because we got good support, we got good help, and we got the best of quality ABA therapy at the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. So if I wax poetic about CARD from time to time, that's why. I want you to know that there are many quality ABA providers that are out there around the world, and no one ever on this show is trying to make it sound like there aren't many, right? CARD is one of those quality ABA providers, and if I talk about them with love and affection, it's because they gave me my child back. It's plain and simple. It doesn't get any simpler than that, and they're in more places around the world than any other ABA provider. So of course, I'm going to recommend them to you, but what's key is that you get access to quality ABA, right? And we talk about that, but we talk about so many other things here on the show. So, but again, I'm not the expert. I'm the student who likes to sit in the front row and help connect you with the support and the resources that you need to be able to make the choices that are right for you and for your family. This is not a one-size-fits-all community, right? But that doesn't change the fact that we all hold hands together and we do this together. That is key. But everybody has their own circumstances, and everybody needs to fit those individual needs, and nobody knows better what you need than you, right? I'm in that mode because I'm talking to all these moms. It's IEP season, and I have an IEP coming up this week, and I have so many friends. Everybody's writing and saying, we have the IEP coming up. We just did the IEP, and I think it's important in IEP season to remember that experts are great, teachers are wonderful. I'm a big fan of teachers because teachers who teach and teach well are angels walking on this earth, right? But all of that expertise and all of those teachers, we still have instincts, right? And sometimes that instinct is just the thing that trumps everything else. So don't leave your instinct out of it. Okay. Well, enough said about that. We like to start every show with something we fondly refer to as the jargon of the day. This is the jargon du jour, when we take on one word, one phrase, one acronym, and we try to make sense of it so that we can understand it, even though we don't have a degree in psychology and are fairly new to the autism community. This is a labor of love for me because I don't know about you guys, but I consider myself a fairly intelligent person. I love words. I love finding out what words mean. I have been known to, on a fairly regular basis, keep a regular book page dictionary and look up words that I use every day and go, I don't know that I know for sure what that means. I'm going to look it up, right? So when my son was diagnosed with autism and the experts started using some of these jargon terms, my initial response, I will be honest, was anger. Like, I'm not underslept enough that I got to put up with this. I'm here for help. Can you speak to me in a way that I can understand? Then I got a little bit interested. Then I got angry again. And then I surrendered and said, okay, I need to begin to understand what these terms mean because it's costing my child time. It's costing us funding for his program because I'm having to stop and ask, what does this mean? And even when they would explain it to me, I still wouldn't understand it sometimes, right? Okay, so we take on jargon, one word, one phrase, one acronym at a time, give you the actual definition so you start hearing some of the other jargon words, and then we give you a watered down, little less specific, but a working definition, something you can go, okay, I can begin to get the glimmer of what we're talking about here. And then, of course, as you see these integrated into your life, then they start to really make sense. But you got to start somewhere, right? Okay, so today's term, this is something that came up in last week, one of last week's show, and I thought, oh, we haven't covered this in a while because it's one of those phrases that hurts my head a little bit. You ready? Mass trial. Okay, now I don't know about you, but this, I always think of Nuremberg. When they talk about mass trials, I'm like, are we talking about Nuremberg? Are we talking about a bunch of people on trial at the same time? What are we talking about here? And of course, in the world of autism, it has nothing to do with Nuremberg, nothing at all. So let's take a look. Our actual definition, repeated consecutive trials of the same SD and target. Now, you know, it's not that hard of a definition as long as you know what an SD and a target are, right? And probably, you know, if you're anywhere on day 1 to day 3,000, that might be a little shaky for you. I'm just going to be honest here. Okay, so let's go to our working definition. Mass trial is getting your child to demonstrate exactly the same target behavior. You know, and even I have a little bit of trouble with this definition because it isn't as exact as we want it to be. But again, remember, this is a working definition. So, okay, what are we talking about? When you're doing discrete trial training with a child, and remember what that is, it's when you're isolating what it is that you want to learn. So let's say that my target is that I want the child to understand that this thing that I have here is a pen. I want them to get that in every possible way that they could understand what a pen is. I want them to understand that this is a writing utensil. I want them to understand that you can't tell because it's our green screen, but it's actually green and it's showing up as being black. I want them to understand what this does. Okay, and I want them to be able to say that it's a pen, and I want them, when I say it's a pen, for them to understand that it's a pen, right? I can't possibly teach all these things at the same time. And I may have taken it for granted that this child, since I'm using the word pen all the time, will just pick it up, because a lot of times that's what a neurotypical child will do. But our children on the autism spectrum, sometimes because they got so many other things going on sensory-wise, will miss learning organically that this is a pen. And I don't want them to miss that. So I'm going to remove everything else from the equation, and I'm going to teach them that this is a pen. And there are lots of different lessons. You know, as I said, I want them to be able to say, when I say, what is this? I want them to be able to say, it's a pen, right? And when I say, can you hand me the pen? I want them to understand that this is the thing that I want them to grab. And then I also want to be able to say to them, what do you write with? A pen. And understand it in terms of all of those different ways. So I'm going to isolate a lesson one at a time, and I'm going to teach this. So I'm going to say, I might set it on the desk, and I might say to the child, give me the pen. Now, there's nothing else on the desk. I've cleared the desk and made sure that there's nothing else there. And the child gives me the pen. Now, that's errorless learning. I've made sure that they can give me the pen because there's no other choices there. And I'm even going to prompt them, maybe with a physical prompt. If they don't reach for it, I'm going to have hand over hand and go, yeah, thanks. Thanks for giving me the pen. And I'm going to keep isolating that this is the pen. Now, eventually, I got to put distractors in, right? Because otherwise, they're never going to be able to discriminate the difference between this and, let's say, I've got a binder clip here. I want them to understand that I'm not just saying, give me the object. I want you to give me the pen. That's what this means. So now I might put these two things out there and say, give me the pen. Now, the child might go for the binder clip, and then I'm going to very gently, you know, stop them, and I'm going to say, give me the pen, and I might prompt again. Physical prompt so that they give me the pen, right? But I'm not going to stop and in the middle start teaching the binder clip. This is why we're calling this mass trial, because all I'm teaching is that it's the pen. I'm not teaching that it's the binder clip or that it's the mouse, right? But I might put these things in as distractors while I'm teaching the pen. This is mass trialing, when you're only teaching one thing at a time. Eventually, I'm going to change this up so that I've taught the pen and they understand what the pen is. Now I'm going to go and I'm going to teach the mouse, right? So then sometimes I'm going to say, give me the mouse, and sometimes I'm going to say, give me the pen. But for this beginning mass trial, I'm only teaching one thing. In this instance, it's the pen, but it could be any one of a million things that I could teach. But mass trial is teaching this thing and only teaching this lesson for this period of time. I'm not changing it up. I'm giving them so many opportunities to get that this is a pen before I move on to the next step. It's so important to understand what a mass trial is. If you're in a clinic and somebody says, well, let's mass trial X, Y, or Z, right? That's what they're talking about. They're just going to teach this. And when you're listening to the therapy sessions, it sounds boring, right? Like you go, why are we doing it this many times? Because we want to give the child, we've heard from so many experts that the key to really teaching something is giving lots of opportunities, being specific, and rewarding correct answers. So that mass trial is where we're giving that lots of opportunity. And every time they get it right, yay! And we give them something that's meaningful to them. We're pairing the praise with something that's meaningful to them. So if your child loves to watch Garfield the cat, right? And you've got the iPad set up so that it's going to show 30 seconds of a Garfield thing, and maybe you've decided you're going to do 10 trials of give me the pen. They give you the pen, you go, yay! And you're marking it off where they can see it, that they get a little star, and when they get a certain number of stars, we turn on Garfield for 2 minutes, right? That's their big reward for doing it, but we're giving the praise in between each time. It's mass trialing, teaching one thing at a time. It's one of the first steps, but we'll hear on Thursday about what the next step is when you start to be able to put those other things in and teaching other things at the same time. I keep showing the pen, but it could be any lesson. Mass trial teaching and isolating one target at a time. It sounds like it's just the most boring thing, and yet it is the quickest way to learn anything. Anything. I mean, when I think about when my mother taught me how to cast on, when she was going to teach me how to knit, she would show me casting on, and she would cast on, and then she would have me do it, and I would cast on and cast on and cast on and cast on. She didn't say, okay, now I'm going to teach you how to knit, now I'm going to teach you how to purl. I had to get the cast on first, right? Then eventually, when I showed that I had some mastery with the casting on, then we went on to other things. But it's so frustrating if you get hit with 1,000 things at a time, right? And however long it takes, we're going to mass trial the one thing first until we get that. Then we're going to mass trial something else, and then we'll move on to the next step, which we'll talk about on Thursday. It's a cliffhanger. You have to stick around to come back on Thursday. Okay, and if you don't completely get it yet, and it's still something that you go, oh, no, I get it. But then when you're there in clinic and they say mass trial, you go, I just don't quite have it. Don't worry. You will get it in time. Okay, moving on. We always have a question of the day for you, and you guys have loved this question. You're already writing it in droves, and we could take more responses, but here it is. What really makes you mad? I want to know what tears your ticket. It's Tuesday. It's time to vent, to cleanse, to get it out. What really, really ticks you off? And I was thinking about this morning on the drive in and thinking, okay, what really makes me mad? And as I was thinking, it was so therapeutic because I was thinking about it and going, well, this really makes me mad. And then I would think, yeah, but the reason why that happens is because of ignorance. And I can't really be mad at ignorance because ignorance is a failure to understand it. And then maybe it's more work that and so I was sort of talking myself out of being mad about it. But there are a couple of things that really tear my ticket. And I talk about this all the time. I hate it when people tell my child he's wrong when he's right. I just hate it. It just makes me mad. It makes me feel like people are being lazy when they do that. I cannot stand it when people tell my child that he's wrong when he's not. Perfect example, a couple of years ago, he was in a classroom and they had done, what's the story about the city mouse and the country mouse? And they were talking about it and they wanted to know at the end of, and they were in these small group discussions, and whoever was leading his group, and it was somebody visiting his classroom, said, so what do we think the theme of city mouse and country mouse are? And all the kids were saying things, and they asked my son what he thought, and he said, well, it was written at a time when, and I know that this happened because there was somebody there observing that day, and she told me about it. He said, well, it was written at a time when they had just gone through the Industrial Revolution, and so they were kind of making a comparison between, there was one way of life and how they were moving to another way of life. And the person who was leading the group said, no, because that wasn't the answer she was looking for. As if when you're asking what the theme of something is, there is a open and shut, only one interpretation kind of thing. Oh, I just hate that kind of thinking. And anyway, she just shut him down and said no. And the person who was there observing, thank goodness she was there, because she went up to him and said, you know what, that was brilliant, and I've never thought about it that way, and you're absolutely right. And, you know, it was advanced. It was like a college answer. And they told him no. Tears my ticket, right? But I think that the person who said that just didn't get it. They didn't understand what he was saying. My son gets symbolism so much better than a lot of adults I know. So we can't be mad at them for what they don't know, right? In any case, I'm going to check in a little bit later to see what really makes you guys mad. And I think it's good for us to get these things out, talk about them and go, okay, it really makes me mad. But then, you know, you sort of go, oh, and this is why, and this is what I need to do. Right? I need to make sure that my son is in a classroom where the people asking the questions can understand that level of the answer that he's giving. That's what I need to do. Okay, we also always have a topic of the week. And our topic this week, which goes hand in hand with what I was just mentioning, focusing on what really matters. This is hard because our lives are busy. Our lives we have television bombarding us and the internet bombarding us with this is what's important, this is what's important, this is what's important. But it's really important that every once in a while we stop, and this is for the big picture and the small picture. I was thinking about this and thinking, how many times have I had strife in a classroom simply because we didn't identify what the target is? What are we trying to teach right now? Because if in this moment I'm trying to teach, what is this? It's a pen, then there are some things that I need to be concerned with, right? If the child is laying on the floor face down and not making eye contact, I'm not going to be able to teach what a pen is. But if I've already gotten the prerequisites out of the way and the child is there and the child is answering, this is a pen, but at the same time, he's got a little stim going on, I got to make a decision about what's important here. What is it that really matters in this moment? And, you know, sometimes it will be the lesson, and sometimes, depending on the circumstance, it might be what's happening, you know, with the stimulatory behavior, but you got to put it through the filter of what matters in this moment. I watched the other day, a parent on Facebook was so thrilled because the school called her and told her that her child had lied. And the school was really ticked off about it and saying, this is an issue and we need to meet and we don't tolerate lying and whatever. And the parent was... yay, my kid lied, and doing the whole dance. And of course, people didn't understand. We understand why she was doing that, right? Because if we look at the big picture of what really matters, that's a milestone. He knew how to lie. And that's an important thing, because our kids need to know how to lie. It's important that he knows when it's appropriate to lie and when it's not. But hey, that's teachable. That's really teachable. And you know, the school wasn't really getting it because they weren't looking at the big picture. It's really important that we take time, separate back from things, and focus for just a couple of seconds on what really, really matters. So we're going to be talking about that all week long. Now, some of the great things that we're going to be doing during this particular show, we have a really special guest. So thrilled to have him back on the show. And when he's been on the show before, it's been when Nancy Allspot-Jackson is here. And I know she's missing having an opportunity to be here with Jesse Saperstein, but I'm kind of loving it because I get him all to myself today. Not that I love being with Nancy, but this is sort of fun that I get Jesse all to myself. Jesse is an amazing young man who is on the autism spectrum, a wonderful author with a new book coming out that he's going to be talking with us today, and somebody who's been an outspoken advocate talking about bullying, and not just from the autism perspective, but for for all kids, talking about bullying, what it looks like, what it is, and what we need to be doing to stop it. So thrilled that Jesse's going to be with us in just a few minutes. We are going to be talking a little bit about compliance today, and we're going to cover the topic, what makes you mad? And I'm going to guess that a lot of times it's the things that are making you mad are the things that are coming into play with the things that matter the most to you. That's when we get ticked. That's when it tears our ticket, when it's something that really, really matters, which is why I don't like it when people tell my son that he's wrong when he's not, because that matters to me. Okay, so we're going to talk about all of these things and your questions throughout the show. Stick with us. We're going to be right back after these messages.
Hi, welcome back. I'm Lisa Ackerman with TACA. We're here with the TACA Facts, the most common questions in the autism journey, real-life questions and answers for your family. Oh boy, this one gets me in trouble. I get this question probably at least a dozen times a week, but how do I get my significant other on board? Whether it's having ABA done in your home, 5 days a week, speech therapy, or even biomedical intervention. I'm talking to you as a parent. It happened to me in the autism journey 3 years after diagnosis. I felt like I'd been through a war zone. I don't have pictures. I don't remember those 3 years. It was awful, and I'm surprised my husband and I made it out of that war zone. So here's some of the tips that helped me get through those 3 years and made it a better marriage, because he's the one I want to be with. First thing you need to do, and this goes for dudes and chicks, replace all the bathroom reading material. Now, whether you just had an independent evaluation with a neuropsychologist, or you just went to your doctor, your MAPS doctor, to help your child get through some serious medical issues, replace the labs, replace the neuropsych eval, and put that all in the bathroom. That's where we do our best reading and thinking, after all. It's one of the most simplistic things that you can do, but literally replace all the bathroom reading material. 2, very important that twice a year you have a meeting and you schedule it with your spouse to say, we're going to do the next 6 months of planning, whether it's just create a quick list, identify the issues or the self-stimulatory behavior or the things that you need to do to help your child with autism make the project. Let me give you an example. We created the Man Project. My son was becoming a teenager, and we found ourselves living a little bit in a rut, babying him a little too much. So what we did was we created a Man Project, and we identified a list of the skills and the things that we wanted my son or our son to learn. We agreed to it, and then we came up with a plan that we could activate over the next 6 months. And my next favorite, don't forget to have sex with your spouse. Often you will feel disconnected with the person that you love. And if you're not connected with them, you're not connected with them in that way. You're not connecting with them in your autism journey. So my husband laughs, he calls me Dr. Ruth, so I'm giving you a coupon to please just go have sex with your spouse. That will help move things along, but also make it a little more cohesive in a house of chaos, living with autism. So hi, this is Lisa signing out as Dr. Ruth. No, I'm just kidding. Lisa Ackerman with TACA, and we'll talk to you at the next TACA Facts.
Welcome back to Autism Live. We're so thrilled that we have a very special guest who's joining us right now via Skype. Jesse Saperstein is with us. He's been on the show before. He is an amazing young man, an author, an advocate, a speaker, and truly someone who is very inspirational. Jesse, welcome back to Autism Live.
Thank you, Shannon. It's great to be back.
We're so thrilled to have you today. And in just a second, we're going to talk about your new book. When we had you on before, we were talking about your first book, Atypical, Life with Asperger's in 20 1/3 chapters. But you've got a new book coming out in a couple of months. I want to give people a reference, though, Jesse, for who you are. So tell our viewers at home a little bit about you.
Well, I'm a published author. My first book was Atypical, Life with Asperger's in 20 1/3 chapters, and that was published April 2010. And now my newest book is coming out Tuesday, August 5th. It's called Getting a Life with Asperger's, Lessons Learned on the Bumpy Road to Adulthood. And this is apparently me. I'm this Super Mario character on the front. One of the things I liked when I was a child was playing video games. And the new book is designed to help make the transition into adulthood if you have an autism spectrum disorder.
And so, Jesse, when were you diagnosed?
I was diagnosed at age 14 in 1996.
And your diagnosis was Asperger's?
That's correct. When I was much younger, I was diagnosed with pervasive developmental disorder before they knew much about Asperger's.
Okay. And so how would you say, what ways did Asperger's present itself when you were a teenager? What difficulties do you think you were having then?
I almost always had problems during transitional periods. New schools and life phases always brought out the worst in my condition through immaturity or just having trouble adjusting. People with Asperger's often have trouble with generalization. They don't naturally understand that some things that worked in the past are considered to be inappropriate in a new environment. And I had trouble with bullying, like so many of my peers too.
And that's led you to be quite an outspoken advocate for bullying. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that in our second segment. But Jesse, how old are you now?
I'm 32.
And you are, by anybody's definition, a very successful guy. You're leading quite an exciting life, but you are on the autism spectrum. How does it affect your life now?
I actually do extremely well with having Asperger's. Most of my demons are behind me. Any inappropriate behavior has long died a natural death. I think of the 1980s movie Over the Top, and Sylvester Stallone says, "The world meets nobody halfway." So as children get older, I think that they should take on new experiences that may cause discomfort, failure at the beginning. And if somebody tells me you don't belong here or this is not a good fit for you, I often say, I know that's the whole point. And on that note, I've had success working in very sensitive environments that most people would fail in, Asperger's or no disability otherwise, like working in a funeral home. I helped counsel people who are grieving.
Wow. Well, Jesse, I can't imagine anyone who could give better advice about how to get a life with Asperger's than you. We're really looking forward to this new book. Where, you said it's coming out in the beginning of August, where will people be able to purchase it?
It will be out in most of the Barnes & Noble stores across the country, and it's also available on Amazon.com to be ordered or through Kindle.
And we should mention, too, that you have a lovely website where people can go and find out more information about you and about events that you're speaking at. And your first book, if they haven't gotten your first book, they really need to get Atypical, Life with Asperger's in 20 1/3 chapters. And you can get all of that at jessesaperstein.com. Emily, we just had it on the screen. We are going to take a break, and then we're going to come back with more questions for Jesse. And if you would like to ask Jesse a question, please write in now to our live feature. Stick with us. We'll be right back.
Hello, fellow activists. Let's talk about step 6, live in gratitude and give back. Have you ever noticed that it's impossible to feel sorry for yourself when you focus on your blessings? I have an exercise for you. Take out 5 pennies. I want each penny to represent something you're thankful for today. Now, I bet not one of those pennies represented something material, but that every one of them represented someone you love or a moment you shared with that someone.
Go through life parched and empty, standing knee deep in a river and dying of thirst.
There's a song by Kathy Mattea called Standing Knee Deep in a River and Dying of Thirst. Sometimes we need to look at the river of blessings flowing underneath us And then we see we're not so thirsty after all. Once you realize how fortunate you are, you can freely give back to others. And there's nothing that will make you feel more fortunate than giving to those less fortunate than you. So start your day with an attitude of gratitude. And until next time, keep the faith.
Welcome back to Autism Live. Our very special guest right now joining us via Skype is Jesse Saperstein. He is an amazing young man, an author, an advocate. You mentioned before, Jesse, that bullying was a part of your life growing up. You had an Asperger diagnosis and you felt the sting of bullying. And this is something that has to have made such a huge impression on you because you do so much work now about bullying. Tell our viewers what your interest is in bullying and what you're trying to accomplish.
My interest in bullying is to not just try to stop it, but show people what they're missing. I'd like them to turn their attention to the gifts of those with Asperger syndrome and teach people who don't understand to ask questions. And that dialogue will lead to a ton of understanding. And my next attempt is to do a shoot with the New York Blood Center this Friday on May 16th. And the purpose will be having me actually donate blood with a needle in my arm. And at the same time, I'm going to be giving a speech about the wonders of disabilities like Asperger's, and also, of course, to encourage people to donate blood.
Wow, you're gonna be quite the multitasker.
I was just thinking that. That's right. It's the ultimate multitasking.
Have you given blood on many occasions before, Jesse?
All the time.
Okay.
Every 2 months since I was 17.
Okay, because some of us pass out when we give blood, and we're not being asked to give a speech while we're doing it. So you're pretty confident that you'll be okay doing this.
I've not had a problem yet.
Okay. Well, I don't want to jinx you. You'll probably be fine. You're pretty hale and hearty, but some of us pass out when we give blood. But well, that's going to be a pretty interesting speech, and I love that you put such a great face out there, Jesse, for the community to say, "Hey, this is what the autism spectrum looks like, and it's perfectly functional." I love that you're out there sending that message.
I appreciate that. That is the message that I want people to absorb. And I want to clarify that I was not always like this. It took a lot of work, and I had to suffer for a long time before I was able to build a life. And the goal in my new book, as well as the speeches, is to show people what is possible. And hopefully, from learning my experiences, they can shave off some of their own suffering.
Oh, I think that's a wonderful, wonderful mission that you're on. And so let's talk about this a little bit. What do you think, we don't want to give away too much from the book, right? But what do you think, what's maybe one thing that you learned along the way that has made a difference for you?
I've definitely learned that the best way to confront your problems is through compromise, and at times compromising on the original compromise. And also that inappropriate actions, even if they're not helped by Asperger's, they should never be an excuse, because I lost 2 careers at the start of my adulthood, and it took about 7 years to build them all back. So that whole song and dance, "Oh, I have Asperger's, this is just how I am," it never worked in the real world. But at the same time, because you have Asperger's and you're as human as everybody else, chances are you will make a small mistake, and the world should let you bounce back a lot quicker than I was able to.
Wow. I wonder, Jesse, you know, so many of the young adults that I talk to, whether they're on the spectrum or they're not on the spectrum, have described to me recently how difficult it is in this day and age. And I think because a lot of it is digital, your interaction with people is digital, and you don't get to get the full read on what people's intentions are. I'm hearing a lot of young people talk about, I thought they were my friend, but then they did this. We just heard this story a couple of months ago about the young man on the autism spectrum that was hanging around with two friends, and the friends horribly, horribly abused him. And even after they were taken into custody, the young boy was saying, I thought they were my friends. And I'm wondering if you have any advice for parents or young people on the spectrum about how do you identify who your real friends are and who are the artificial people who just want something from you?
I would take a look at these so-called friends and see when they want to hang out, when do they wish to make plans, and if it's always when they want something, then that's a sign that they're not your real friends. And we all have people like that in our lives, where today's duties become tomorrow's favors, and they're your best friends when you're doing something for them. And sometimes it can be worse than being taken advantage of as far as favors. It can be full-blown bullying, like this horrible story. I believe that these girls made the boy walk across an icy pond and do a humiliating act with a pet or something.
Oh, it's horrible. Horrifying. Just horrifying.
This was a huge problem, and my attitude is that by the time we confront a problem, that means it's too late. How about focusing most of our efforts on prevention? Even if there's nothing to be fixed, do your best to educate people and prevent possible occurrences.
Absolutely, I agree. We have a question from a viewer. They say, hi, Jesse and Shannon. What therapies did you do, Jesse, at a young age that you feel have helped you? And how did you deal with bullying at a very young age?
I have to be honest, most of my therapies did not really help me because of the lack of education about Asperger's. And the attitude in those days was just let it go or stop perseverating. And there were no therapies to cater to the mentality of Asperger's. But I've developed therapies on my own and through people who are supportive. The best therapy is what I call incremental backing off. That means I won't let go of an obsession, but I'll come back to it after a prolonged increment of time. And this works with parents trying to wean their kids off of certain special interests that rage out of control. And another therapy is, I guess, educating people, letting people know that I have Asperger's. And if I don't know that something is broken, then I have no chance of fixing it. So people are afraid to be confrontational as an adult. And the only time I hear there's a problem is when it's too late, when it escalates. So therefore, a good tool would be the How's My Behavior cards for those who are in the throes of Asperger's, to give out to the public, talking about the diagnosis and diffusing fear.
Wonderful, wonderful. And you said you don't, if you don't know that it's broken, then how can you fix it? When you were a kid, when you found out that you had Asperger's, did you feel broken?
Yes, I did. I always felt that there was something wrong with me, something to be fixed. Unfortunately, the standards that children with Asperger's are expected to live up to are astronomical and ridiculous. They have to sort of be a chameleon, be a perpetual actor 24 hours a day, and their uniqueness is not always appreciated. Yeah. And that's exactly why I'm doing the blood donation stunt this Friday. Because if I were going around telling my classmates, oh, I love hanging around blood drives, and I can't wait to donate blood when I get older, they'd probably say, oh God, you're such a loser. Therefore, maybe the attention that I'll hopefully receive will filter down to a lot of my peers.
And so I'm curious, when you felt broken, looking back on it, do you think you felt like you were broken because there were things that you wanted to do that you couldn't do, or did you feel like you were broken because people were saying you're just not doing it our way?
Essentially, it's because they said you're just not doing it our way. You're not conforming. You're not being what we want you to be. But there were lapses in bullying, of course. There were definitely people who treated me with compassion, and that motivated me to compensate in ways that I had control over. I was in a lot of shows growing up, and I did a lot of extracurricular duties in my college. So I was always good about involving myself, and that sort of chipped away at the public opinion of me. I was able to get a lot out of high school for a while, going to my proms, performing in front of the whole school. So that helped my self-esteem.
Okay. So, and now, Jesse, would you ever describe yourself as broken now?
There's definitely things that I want to fix about myself. I want to lose about 40 pounds, and I'm trying to practice the art of what I call reverse procrastination. That means pretending to be in a state of panic that something has to be done, even if there's nothing to worry about yet. I feel that we wait to the last minute. We wait to the last minute when there's no pressure. So we should artificially create pressure and make a fun game out of it.
I think that's funny. I could use that. And by the way, if needing to lose 40 pounds is broken, then I'm flat busted. So I can relate. But I don't think you're broken at all. I think you're remarkable. And I think that you are perfect just exactly the way you are, Jesse.
I appreciate that, Shannon. But I don't want to become complacent.
Well,
I think
everybody's got work to do, right?
Exactly.
But there's nothing broken about you.
I'm beginning to feel that way myself, and I'm trying to send that message to my peers.
Well, we love this new book. Show us the book cover again. Wonderful, wonderful book, Getting a Life with Asperger's. And you said that it's out the first week in August?
It's out on Tuesday, August 5th.
Tuesday, August 5th. And again, people can get that at Barnes & Noble. They can get it on Amazon. And they can also get it at your website, which is jessesaperstein.com.
Yes, and I'd like to give them my email address, too. It's
all right.
Jesse A. Saperstein @gmail.com.
Okay, Jesse A. Saperstein. And we talked during the break. The one thing you ask is that people spell your name correctly. There's no I in your Jesse.
That's right, Jesse.
There we go. Jesse, thank you so much for all that you do. You're such an inspiration to all of us. Keep up the good work, and we can't wait for the new book.
Thank you so much for talking with me, Shannon.
All right, you have a wonderful day.
Thank you. You too.
Bye-bye. Jesse Saperstein, just such a breath of fresh air. My goodness, what a wonderful, articulate, fabulous young man on a great, great mission to help our kids. And as I said, who would we trust better to tell us how to get a life with Asperger's than the young man who has in spades? So check it out, jessesaperstein.com. We're going to take a break, and we'll be back with more of Autism Live after these messages.
Welcome back to Smarty. This month we're going to be making a mandala. Mandala, you ask? What's that? Well, in Sanskrit that means circle, and you'll see what I mean in just a moment. Okay, the materials you'll be needing for this project are colored paper, scissors, and glue. I'm assuming a lot of you guys have made paper snowflakes before. Well, this is the same idea, except for we're going to be doing it with A, lots of color, and then B, we're going to be layering it up. So, first step we're going to have to do is fold the piece of paper so when we cut it out, there's going to be a repeating pattern on it. So what you're going to do is fold it in half. And then you're going to fold it in half again. Make sure your lines are super creased, okay? And you're going to keep doing this. You're going to keep folding it in half as many times as you can possibly fold your paper. So now that this is folded in half as many times as I physically can fold it, I'm going to take my scissors and I'm going to cut out the excess. So here's the paper with all the excess cut off. If I open it up, boom, it's a circle. But it's missing all the wonderful patterns in here that repeat. So let's fold it back up. And what we're going to do now is we're going to cut the shapes in it. kind of like a snowflake. So get creative here. Remember, don't go all the way through, or else you're gonna just cut in half. So have fun with it. Okay, since my paper is, as you saw earlier, double-sided with different colors, I'm gonna cut out the center part and I'm gonna flip it. I know that sounds crazy, but you'll see what I mean in a second. All right, so let's open this up and take a look at it. Ooh, so you see that? I've got a perfect circle with a repeating pattern, exactly what I wanted. All right, so I've cut out the center part that I cut out for my whole circle, and let's open it up. Look at that, it's another circle, but it's smaller. I'm gonna take this and place this in the inside. So the basic idea of the mandala is you're gonna take your construction paper, fold it like I just showed you, and then cut different sized triangles, which will turn into circles, so there'll be layers of colors with the pattern. And of course, while you're doing this, you can talk about colors and to have them work on their cutting skills. So now that I've cut out several snowflakes, I am going to start gluing them down on a piece of paper. Here's my mandala. It looks pretty finished, and it can be. But if you have an older kid and you really, really want to hone in on working on pattern making, you can take this little scrap pieces that you cut out and have them add to the pattern themselves. Well, I hope you and your child enjoyed this project and learned a lot from it. Until next time, guys, craft on.
Can you see me flying by your side?
Welcome back to Autism Live. What a remarkable young man. I can't tell you what a pleasure it is. But obviously you could see it's such a pleasure to be able to talk to such a wonderful young man. I'm always struck by when I get an opportunity to be around young men and women who are on the autism spectrum, who have been able to find themselves and have, through their life and through the people supporting them and therapies that they've done, to get to the place where they accept themselves, and they're still always striving to be better at whatever it is that, you know, they have difficulties with, like the rest of us, right? But they're so much more polite. And I have to say that that's a warm fuzzy for me. You know, we were here with Reese Bowen the other day, 15-year-old who was being featured in the Autism Speaks commercial. The nicest, kindest, sweetest, most polite young 15-year-old I have ever met in my entire life. And my son can tell you he's heard it nonstop the last couple of days. I've been saying, wasn't it nice to meet Reese? And wasn't he so nice? And, you know, that's what a young man behaves like, just really drilling that home, because I want him to have those role models and see. But I remember when we first started doing the show a couple of summers ago, there were 3 young men who were working here in the building who had, I have trouble saying the recovered word now because I know so many of you don't like that word, but they overcame the disabling aspects of autism that they had displayed as children. And they were all very productive adults. And it was one of my favorite things in the world to be around them and to watch them interact together, because funny, oh my goodness, make everybody fall down in the hallway. Funny, the 3 of them together. And I'm talking, they were deliberately, they were like 3 stand-up comedians who all they wanted to do was crack all of us up, and they did. But they were gentlemen. They were opening doors for all the women, holding the elevator doors, you know, making eye contact and asking, how are you today? Where a lot of other people just were going about their business and not taking the time to be polite and connect with people. It's a very interesting and ironic thing, right? That they were the ultimate in social. And when you would talk to them about it, they'd say, well, I had good lessons. We have to love that, right? We have to acknowledge that that's a piece of this, and I think it's a really good piece of it. So thrilled to have Jesse here, and you got to check out his books. He's an amazing, amazing young man, and such a light. We absolutely love what he's doing for bullying and calling to attention. You can also see on his website, he's done some really incredible videos, toured the world at one point asking young people to talk about bullying and how they had been involved in bullying. He's a great, great young man. In any case, a couple of things that I want to share with you. Tomorrow, on the show, Dr. Doreen Granpeche is back to answer your questions, and she won't be here the week after. So I know a lot of you have been writing in questions. We didn't have her last week, and so there are a plethora, as they say, of questions, but keep them coming in because we've also got some other people that are going to be on the show this week that we can have an opportunity to ask them questions as well. Vince Redmond will be here tomorrow during Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. We try to have him on once a month now. He is the parent liaison. I don't think that that's his actual title, but he is a marriage and family therapist, but he is also works as a liaison now for CARD parents, and he's someone who has spent a great deal of time doing therapy with individuals who are on the autism spectrum, not just children, but adults as well. And for him also, as a marriage and family therapist, he brings something to the table that I don't know anyone else who does. I don't know anybody else who has 20 plus years of quality ABA experience being the person who is delivering and helping to design, and that component that he's a marriage and family therapist. So he's going to be with us tomorrow talking very frankly about how do we get the most out of therapy? How do we squeeze every single drop out of this amazing opportunity that we have? I've been doing a lot of speaking engagements in a lot of different places, talking to therapists around the country that are dealing with families and talking about what are some of the obstacles that people are meeting. And of course, I always get an opportunity to talk to parents. And as much as we love insurance reform and we're delighted that so many more people are getting access to ABA, and there's many more who haven't yet, and we're fighting for those people, but I do think that in this rush for people to get ABA, first of all, not everybody's getting quality ABA, and that's got to be job number one, ensuring that everybody gets access to quality ABA. We're not just going someplace where they hung out a shingle and said, hey, insurance is paying for it, so let's do ABA. That's not going to get it done, right? But it's also, I think, in the rush, some of the parents that are being fed into the insurance line aren't getting the full understanding of what their role is. And it's an important role. This is not a situation where a therapist comes to the home and fixes your child. A therapist comes and introduces lessons, and we as the parents take those lessons and we have to run and plant those lessons in other places so that we grow a full garden. And if we're not a part of that team, we're just not going to get it done. We're not going to be happy with the results. What happens then is the parent sits there and says, how come my child does it for you, but they don't do it for me? That's not success. So we're going to be talking with Vince Redmond tomorrow about how do we overcome that? How do we get to a place, you know, that thing that I always say that for the longest time, I had it hanging in our bathroom, that it said, the team is only as strong as its weakest member, and I will not be the weakest member of my son's team. And, that spurred me on sometimes when I was confused or discouraged or upset because I was having trouble learning the techniques. That spurred me on because I was not going to be the weakest member on the team. We all want what's best for our children. I have an IEP coming up on Friday, so I stumbled over the what's best. It almost said appropriate, right? Because when we're at IEPs, we don't talk about wanting the best for our kids. We talk about what's appropriate. But we're not at an IEP, so I can say what's in all of our hearts. We want what's best for our children. And what's best for our children is when we are an active member of that team and that we're taking advantage of every learning opportunity and we're building that relationship and rapport with our children so that we too have compliance. And we're going to talk a little bit more about compliance. But first, we're going to stop and take a break. We are going to watch The A Word. This is the ongoing documentary that's being made at the Center for Autism and Related Disorders, following a little boy, Jack Riley, who was diagnosed with autism at the age of 2. And he's in the middle of his first year of intensive quality ABA therapy. And you can see, if you watch this whole series, the parents are involved. It doesn't work otherwise. It really doesn't. We're not going to get to the best possible outcome unless they're in the trenches. Is it easy? Oh, no. Oh no. If somebody's telling you, oh, this will be easy, I'm sorry, they're not telling you the truth. But is it worthwhile? Oh, yes. So take a look. This is the A word.
What is autism?
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 I've been asking myself that for a very, very long time.
Let me think about that one.
Trying to,
Jeez. Let me think. Oh man, that's a rough one. Yes.
Autism is a neurological disorder that affects many of our kids in different ways.
It's a learning disability that affects the cognitive functions of the brain.
A lot of people have the misconception that it's a disability, and it's really not.
I look at it as like a special gift.
When one person thinks differently from another.
It's an opportunity for everyone to learn to understand someone that's a little different than them. Autism is the ability to educate.
They're given so much talent in different areas.
To me, autism means a chance to be with and be around people you really care about. Autism is beautiful.
It's a way of seeing the world differently.
It's always unique, totally intelligent, and sometimes mysterious.
Happiness that comes out of my son's hard work.
It's a movement.
Unpredictable.
That's right.
Awesome. Love.
The field I want to work in.
Laughter, fun, joy. Autism is beautiful to me.
I want you to remember these 3 words. There is hope.
Jack Riley. Jack Riley, say hi, Mommy. Hi, Mommy. Turn and look at me when you say hi, Mommy. Hi, Mommy. Good try.
Hi, everybody. Hi, everybody. Hi, everybody.
So how are things?
They're good.
Yeah.
He's doing great. He had an incident.
What are you gonna
4th of July, we were out swimming with
you
another
gonna play with?
family out there, and he pushed a little girl in the pool. A little 3-year-old.
Was he playing or?
Well, yeah, she was jumping in, and there was the steps, and her dad was watching. She jumped in and sort of paddled to the steps, and she kept doing it. And he was laughing, and she was laughing, and then he just helped her. So it wasn't malicious. But,
yeah, he wasn't angry. I think it was.
And they did it again though. After we so we took him in.
More than like 5 minutes, and I'd make note of it.
You want a cracker? We'll come and get it.
There are 2 skills being displayed by Jack Riley right now. One is that he made eye contact, and the other is independently requesting an item without any prompting. These are both skills that he and his parents and therapists have been working on.
Can you say, I want cracker?
I want cracker.
Can you say, I want cracker?
Cheryl is prompting Jack Riley to use more than one word for his requests to build on his vocal skills. When Jack Riley began services 3 months ago, he was non-vocal with very little verbal skills. To be verbal is to communicate, whether it's with a gesture or signing or using pictures, for example. To be vocal is to communicate with audible words.
So if you had to pick maybe like your top 3 things to work on like when you're out in the community.
Trying to figure out what will make him compliant, in public when there's a lot of people. He kind of took off twice for the street.
It's inconsistent enough that you can't count on it. There's days that are great and days where he does one of the.
Or he'll say go.
And then, yeah, go. He says stop and he says go and starts up again.
Okay. Him staying with us, him even just walking hand in hand without, I'd say within fewer than 10 steps, he goes noodle and sits down.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add an outing section in here. And then if you want whenever it works for you guys, at least if we can do it at least once a week. These guys go on an outing to wherever you guys normally go.
Just to start getting him used to that. Because it seems, with the activity, everything changes a little bit from him. Just gets so excited. And that's when I think most reason stops for him. And most of what he learns sort of goes out the window.
Yeah.
Okay. We're going to spiral down. Spiral, spiral, spiral. Yay!
To me, he sounds like he's talking more than before. I don't know. That's what I observed. Huh. You're talking a whole lot today. Do you want to play with your trains? Yes. Good. Okay, should we open? Open. Okay. Say open, please. Open. But the fact that he is actually communicating is really, really cool. And they're actually words instead of just, you know, utterances or, you know, gestures. Yeah, it's really incredible. Incredible. Say, let's go. Let's go. Okay. Choo-choo, come on. Wow, you did.
Right there, Jack Riley independently began playing with his train appropriately. What you see is what a typically developing kid would do, naturally. But kids with autism, most skills need to be taught until the behavior becomes natural. At this age, half of the ABA therapy occurs while the child is playing. The other half is in a structured environment and at the table, like you've seen in other episodes.
You want the train station?
Twice.
Station. That's a hard word. Station. Do you want it?
Yes.
Okay, here we go. Wow, his yeses are very good.
They are.
Oh, and for NVI, we're also doing two-step actions within play. So like basically whatever it is he's playing with, we just have to do two-step actions and he has to be able to imitate whatever we do. Do this. Choo-choo. You do it. Say choo-choo. Choo-choo. Good job. Okay, let's put it on the track here. Do this. Choo-choo. It's Riley's turn. Say choo-choo. Choo-choo. Yeah, here we go. So it's like little actions like that. Just, you know, putting the train on the track, making it go, putting items in the train, imitating even vocally, like what we say during play. Like here we go, choo-choo. Just so this will help generalize when he goes to preschool, because other kids will, you know, be playing with trains too, and children naturally just imitate each other.
Right now, Jessica and Jack Riley are practicing using yes and no appropriately.
Do you want the shoe?
Yes.
Okay, here you go.
Yes.
Say no.
No.
Good. Stop. Put your fingers. Do you want the shoe?
Yes.
Say no.
No.
Good. So do you want the shoe?
No.
Okay. Do you want the ball toy?
Yes.
Okay, here you go.
Bottle.
Here you go. All right, it's over. Okay, here. Do you want a diaper?
Yes. No.
No. Okay. Do you want a diaper?
No.
Okay. Do you want a ball toy?
No.
No. Do you want the cars?
No.
No. Do you want a Nemo car?
No.
Okay. Do you want bubbles?
No.
No.
Yes.
Yes? Okay.
Boo puppy.
Pop, 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 pop.
Boo puppy. Boo puppy.
Hi, can you sit up though? Sit up. Stand up. Ready? Set.
We have new snacks for him because we started to incorporate gluten yesterday. So I've got some stuff.
Oh, okay,
that he
great.
hasn't had in a long time. Like we tried putting cut up bananas on his pancake plate last week, and not so well. He just threw them down. So I thought that kind of stuff would be easier now because he'd been doing so well, and he's not. So we're still gonna have to have the battles, and I think we're just so happy to be done with the first battle, that we're sort of reluctant to start a new one, which is to start introducing new foods.
Yeah.
But the cool thing is now that we're taking him off of the GFCF stuff, we have more things to introduce him to.
Definitely.
And maybe he'll just get less anxious if we're giving him things that he used to love this stuff, but we took him off of it. He won't remember, but maybe it won't be such a big deal if some of the new foods he's getting are things that he's loving. You want to try a cereal bar?
Ooh, yummy.
Are you looking funny?
Jack Riley.
Look better. Do you You want to try cereal bar?
Cereal bar.
Cereal bar. Good talking.
Cereal bar.
You want to try?
Cereal bar.
Cereal bar.
Crystal clear.
Cookie.
You want to try?
Cereal bar.
Try. You used to love these.
So yummy.
I like them.
You want cereal bar?
Cereal bar.
Mommy,
Bobby.
I want.
I want cereal bar.
Good job.
That was a good
That was
sentence.
very clear.
Yeah.
Slow.
Cereal
He
bar.
sees it. So the more subtle we can go, the.
Cereal bar.
Do you want more?
Bar.
Can you say, I want more cereal bar?
Cereal bar.
I
I
want
want
more.
bar. Cereal bar.
Good job.
Cereal bar.
Yeah.
Cereal bar.
It is a cereal. That's your new favorite word.
You have a new favorite, don't you?
Cereal bar. Who's here? Who's here?
Tell Daddy what you just ate.
What did you just eat? Did you eat something?
What did you eat, Jack? Tell Daddy. Goldfish.
Goldfish?
And what else did you have?
Anything else?
What else did you have?
What else did you eat, Jack?
Cereal bar.
What is it?
Good, that's answering a question. Like she asked if you could do that.
What is it?
Cereal bar.
A Nutri-Grain bar. So he
You
just
ate a
had-
Nutri-Grain bar?
And the fact that he turned to Daddy to say that too, that was big.
Just right there. Did you catch it on camera, Suzanne?
Yeah, I did.
That was really, and it was so good.
And he just answered questions about the past to you.
About what?
He just answered questions about the past. Like he never.
That's true.
The doctor last week asked if he could do that.
Okay, I'm not going anywhere. I'm just right here. Right here.
The reason Cheryl is excited about Jack Riley answering Mike's question is that he was able to understand what he said and could recall what he had done in the past without any cues in front of him to remind him. Recalling something in your mind is a complex skill. This is a big leap. It means he grasped language.
Welcome back. Okay, if you watch the show, you know how much I love this series, The A Word. And I've watched them all, and I've watched them multiple times. I still learn things from them, which is awesome. So Emily's showing you where you need to go to be able to watch the whole series and use it as a tool. Use it as a tool however you need it, whether you need a little pick-me-up, you need a little understanding about something, you want to fast forward so you see, look, this is where they were and this is where they got. You know, it's ongoing, so it's not over yet, but Jack Riley's doing amazingly. Okay, I want to go back and talk about some of the different things that, did you notice what we were talking about, how important it is that parents are a part of the team because you're going to get further. They start out and they're sitting at the clinic and, you know, the therapists and the supervisor, the case manager, they're all interacting with the family, with Jack Riley, with the parents. There are all those things going on, but then there's a moment where Jack Riley looks up, makes eye contact with his mother, and says cracker, that he wants a cracker. And I love that the mom quickly demonstrates that she is a strong member of the team because she doesn't just keep talking and ignore the eye contact and just hand the cracker while she's talking to them about how Jack Riley is doing, which I have been guilty of doing before. That's a very common thing that parents will do because we're people, right? But it's that retraining, and the mom stops in the moment and she takes out the cracker and she says, do you want a cracker? And then she says, she prompts him, I want a cracker. So he's not just saying cracker and getting the cracker because he can already do that. He couldn't have done it 3 months before. But it's really important to stay. This was one of the things that was hardest for my husband and I, is that you could be gone for the day. And a lot of times I was home with Jem and my husband was at work. He would come home from work, and in the 8-hour shift that he worked, my son progressed. And so Jim didn't know, okay, that's where he got, so now we need to move the goalpost further away, right? It happens. It's one of the reasons why we have to communicate with everybody on the team. Parents have to communicate with each other so we know, look, the goalpost has gotten further away. We're still doing that. Where I'll say to my husband, don't do that for him. He knows how to do that himself. Let him do that himself, But so, you know, there's that moment and the mom says, prompts him through so that he requests the cracker. You see, and nobody, you know, I mean, this dad is just so amazing because he's willing to learn in front of us, which my husband would not have been willing to do that, right? But you see that a couple minutes later, he asks for cracker and daddy just gives him the cracker. Please, we've all done that, right? But they'll help dad. You'll see that in just another episode, dad's right there in the mix and making him say, I want this before giving it to him. So which way do you think is stronger? If neither of the parents was doing that with him, how quickly would Jack Riley learn it? When mom is doing it with him, how quickly does he learn it? And when everybody on the team is doing it, how quickly will he progress? And we see, because the cameras are there, that dad does pick it up, and so Jack Riley picks it up that much faster because he's had that many more opportunities. So absolutely amazing. You saw that the case manager says, okay, what do you want to work on in public? What kinds of things are going on that you want to work on? Because dad says, you know, we're having some issues. And so there's a discussion and they sort of come up with what are our priorities? What's really kicking our keisters? If you're not having these conversations at clinic, I really have to tell you, you need to get in the driver's seat and drive that bus. You need to be saying to the people on your team, I want to work on this. If they're not asking you tell them, tell them, because these are the important things. And then sometimes you go, oh, why did I tell them? Because now I don't want to work on it, right? There's the honesty of it, but it's worthwhile to work on it. So the parents come up with, well, dad says, I want to work on compliance in public. When there's other people around, how we get him to be compliant. And we are going to talk about compliance in just a minute. Mom says, I want to be able to walk down the street and hold hands with him. Oh, you know, I got to tell you, there was something so healing the first time I heard her say that, because that was my dirty little secret, that I couldn't even walk down the sidewalk with my son and hold hands with him. He couldn't do it. It was like he had some sort of inner ear out of balance thing that would happen the minute I would take his hand, and he would lean over and pull on my hand and like try to touch the sidewalk and lay down on the sidewalk. And I look back on it and go, well, that's because he didn't want to hold my hand. He wanted to run. And I didn't want him to run. We were on a busy street. So I couldn't even walk someplace and hold hands with him. And I, you know, my heart bleeds for her that she's in that place too. But there is something healing in knowing, okay, it's not just me. It's not just my child. This is a thing. And it's a thing, by the way, that can be overcome. Now my son, who's about to be 11, and I still enjoy holding hands with him. But there are times when he will say to me, Mom, we can't hold hands here. You know, my friends are here, you know. And then there are other times when I say to him, you know, this is not a good place for us to hold hands. You just need to, you know, stay where I can see you. And then there are other times when I'm letting the apron strings go and letting him walk out of my visual field. Only occasionally and only for a second. Work to be done, right? Anyway, I really encourage you to watch this series and see how involved the parents need to be for this to be successful. And they are remarkable. They really take it to heart and do what they need to do. And their child improves dramatically because of how involved they are. I love when they show with him, with the therapist, how they're going to work on things, and she says she's teaching him yes and no and do you want it, and it's confusing for him. He's had some struggle with yes and no, and even now you notice the no comes easier than the yes for all of us, and so she says, do you want this? And he says, sometimes he makes a mistake and says yes, right? And so she sits there with her, you want the diaper? And he says yes, and she says, okay. And then he realizes, no, I don't want that. Then later on, she says, do you want the bubbles? No. And then he thinks about it for a second. He goes, yes, I do want those. That moment is when he's connecting the dots, and her silence helps him to connect the dots. One of the hardest things for me to ever get, because I would be like, no, you do want the bubbles, and want to give him the answer instead of letting them think it out. I love that moment. You want the bubble? No. Yes, I do want the bubbles. And then he is happy and thrilled. and did you see when she says, do you want to play with your trains? And she gets them out, and she, she has the thing, but she's not opening anything. That waiting that good therapists do. Do you want the trains? Wait. He says, yes. And she says, oh, okay, let's play with the trains. And then she says, open. And he says, open. And, she's stringing him along. It's like this. And she keeps the lesson going. She could have just said, do you want the trains? He says, yes. And she could have opened it all up, right? But because she's got his interest and she sees that, she parses it out and she's teaching more things. Open, he says open. Because what this little boy is learning is if I say what she says, I'm going to get what I want. So that's why when we get to the cereal bar, he likes the cereal bar, right? And they're saying cereal bar, so he keeps saying cereal bar, cereal bar, cereal bar. Now, to a parent who doesn't have a child who's speaking, that sounds divine, doesn't it? Don't you just go, oh my gosh, listen to him parroting that. Oh my gosh, it's fabulous. To a parent who has an echolalic child who is stuck in that phase, it sounds like the seventh ring of hell. But watch that episode again and see how they don't tell him don't say it again and again and again, right? Because we don't want to cut off any language. This is part of that what matters right now. What matters right now is that we're building language. And when we're building language, we don't quash any language. So they don't tell him to stop saying it so many times. They distract him and they prompt him and say, do you want more cereal bar? And he says, cereal bar, and then he says cereal bar, and mom says I, and then I want, and he, after a couple of times, he's saying I want cereal bar. And yes, he says cereal bar a couple of more times, but remember, what he wants is the cereal bar. He's going to say whatever works. We just need to give him what will work, and we need to keep moving the goalposts. So eventually he says, I want cereal bar. Remember, and sometimes the technical term, when they're showing something and about to give it, they call it teasing. But remember, it's not really teasing. Teasing is when you show something and make it unattainable. Okay? This kind of teasing, we're like, building that momentum of you want it, it's coming, just do this, yay, you got it, right? We never want to tease and say you can't have it. We're always building that rapport. When you see the way Jessica is working with him and how willing he is, she's showing him those two-step things and getting him to learn through observation, which is going to make preschool and kindergarten a whole different animal for this child. And she says, do this, and she piles it on the car and she shows him, and he can't wait to do it. Now, that doesn't happen just because she said it. She built rapport with him. She has been slowly teaching him, you can trust me, and if you do this, you get this. We've seen that sometimes he didn't believe it, and they clashed, and it was hard for him. But he has learned that Jessica's fun, and Jessica cares about me, and Jessica wants to show me something that I've never done before that's going to be really cool. So he's 3 months in now. It took those 3 months, and I want to urge you, if you're a parent who's doing therapy with your child, or you have therapists coming to your home, whatever way that you're involved in it, make sure that you're building that rapport and making sure that all of your consequences, and a lot of times we think consequences and we think negative. I'm talking about the good consequences. If they do that, you give this, and keep making that happen. That's going to be part and parcel of what we talk about with compliance in just a second. That learning through observation thing, though, and I said it's going to be so important for kindergarten and beyond. This last Saturday, my niece was being confirmed, and so we went to a Catholic church, and I think it was probably the second time that my son had ever been in a Catholic church, and the first time, I can assure you, that my son has ever made it through an hour-and-a-half long service. I kept sitting there and thinking, oh my gosh, if we had tried to do this when he was 4, I would have been outside the whole time, and it would have been a nightmare. But my 10-year-old son sat through this service, and in a Catholic church, if you've not been to one, and if you're not used to it, there's a lot of sit down, pull the thing down, kneel, stand up, turn and say this, shake hands with this person. You know, it's a lot of behavior. My husband was raised Catholic, and he didn't know what was going on. And there was my son, and Jem was saying, you know, we're supposed to be holding hands now. Look, everybody's holding hands. He stayed in tune and was watching all of it. He fit in like a champ because he understands how to learn through observation and how to be tuned into what's going on. And that will save our kids on so many, and I mean literally save our kids. My son notices if he goes, everybody's going out that door, you know, he notices that kind of thing. Yeah, there are times when he likes to be in oblivion land in his electronics, but he also knows, and we continue to teach him, he's 10, right, that he's got to stay aware of his surroundings and understand what's happening and look at other people. When he's in the classroom, you know, he gets bored, and sometimes he tunes out and he'll be thinking about a video game because that's his default, right? And he'll eventually he sees, oh, people are moving and people are putting away books. And he knows, I just need to look and see what they're doing so that I know and I can catch up without having to say to the teacher, what did you just tell us to do? Really, really important skills, that learning through observation. And I love at the end this moment where we get him answering a question about something that happened in the past. Those are the minor and the major miracles that so much, it's so different now. 3 months into therapy, and he is a pleasant child, enjoying his time with everybody. He's ruling the roost. Dad comes home, and he's having the beginnings of a conversation with his father about what did he just do. It all continues to build, ladies and gentlemen. It's remarkable. And that is the A word. I hope you watch it. I hope you use this as the tool that it is to help you to get to the progress that you want to see. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about compliance. If you have questions, be writing them in. Stick with us.
Hi, welcome to Camp Discovery, a free-to-play suite of fun, interactive learning games for kids 2 and up, designed by experts in autism. Camp Discovery will open your early learner to a world of new skills, shapes, numbers, colors, locations, emotions, and more. Let's get started.
Please choose a level.
Objects. First, Camp Discovery's Intelligent Preference Assessment determines your child's preferred reward for choosing correctly. Okay, got it. Let's play. Camp Discovery creates a motivating learning environment for your child by minimizing incorrect responses and maximizing successful ones.
Find the shoes.
Respond correctly and your child is rewarded with their favorite animations.
You did it.
Respond incorrectly and our unique prompting system guides your child to the correct answer by making it the largest choice.
That's not it. Try again. Way to go.
Continue to answer correctly and the size gradually reduces until the child makes the correct choice independently.
You win.
Success! Rewards motivate learning. Complete a round and your child is rewarded with a fun mini-game. Track your child's progress with easy-to-read graphs. Multiple settings options allow you to customize Camp Discovery to your child's unique needs. All this in one single app, the Camp Discovery app, available for free on iTunes, Google Play, and Amazon Store.
Welcome back to Autism Live. So I wanted to talk just a little bit about compliance today. And it kind of goes hand in hand with everything we've been talking about, what we just talked about with the A word, and what our topic for this entire week is, which is focusing on what really matters. And at any given time, what really matters to you may shift and be different, right? And that's life. And that's perfectly acceptable. But when you kind of think about, when you boil it all down, compliance is really key. And I have told this story before, but it's worth telling again. A couple of years ago, I went to lunch with a friend, and she had a little boy who was about to start kindergarten. And her son and my son were doing a camp. A summer camp, just a morning thing, and it was a science thing, and they were having a really great time doing it. And so we decided we'd meet to pick the kids up one day, and we'd sit and have a picnic lunch. So we're sitting there at the lunch, and the mom says to me, I don't know what to do, because I have a child who's about to start kindergarten, and it's like I have a teenager. He just is so uncooperative and sullen and attitude and all of these things. And she goes, it's like I have a teenager. I just don't even understand. And she was really, really frustrated. So we were talking a little bit about compliance and how do you get compliance and, you know, what are the important things. And I am certainly no expert, but I know what the experts tell me on a daily basis. And if I could ever just remember to do what they tell me on a regular basis, what could my life be like? I don't know. But what they always tell me is catch them doing something good. Get the train on the tracks where they do something good and you reward them. And start that by catching them doing something good, because that's what you want. Those are the circumstances that you want. That's what you want to teach. That's the space that you want to be in. They can show you graphs and charts that's how they get compliance with kids, is by starting it out with praise, not with nagging them into it. Although I seem to be convinced that nagging will do it eventually, but it doesn't. It doesn't ever. And then I have to go back to, oh, right, let me praise to get where I want to get. So anyway, we had this big discussion, this mom and I, and she was saying, okay, you're right. I'm going to try that. I'm going to do that. And then there was this moment, and the kids were done eating and they were going to go do something. And I don't recall exactly what happened, but she said something to her son, and he just gave her that best teenage attitude thing and rolled his eyes and was just like, whatever. It was absolutely brilliant on a 5-year-old. Never seen somebody do a better impersonation of a teenager. And then he flounced away, and she was 68 kinds of ticked, right? Because none of us want our children to talk to us that way and look at us that way. We wouldn't want them to look at anybody and talk to them that way, let alone us who love them. So he was walking away, and he was like, whatever. And she was mad, and she said his name in that voice that only a mother can say. And she said, stop right where you are. And he did, man. He stopped on a dime, and she said, come here. And he turned around, and he back to the table. And she wound up that finger and was about to give him a schooling about, you don't talk to me that way, young man, right? We've all been there. I've certainly, I think within the last week, I've pulled out the finger and said that to my son. Because we all need the friend there to, intervene in that moment. And I was the horrible friend who intervened in that moment. And I said, wow, that was amazing. And they both, she's got the finger up, and she's like, have you lost your mind? And he was standing there, and he got this confused look on his face, and he's looking at me, and I said, wow, that was incredible. Your mom just told you to stop and to come here, and look at you. You totally did. And in my head, I was thinking, and not only that, she said, come here, like, you're going to get it. And he came. This little boy came. And she was about to miss that amazing moment of compliance. The thing that she wanted, and that we just talked about, she wanted it more than anything else. And she wanted to go back to being, the mom and the son relationship where they're having this conversation instead of the teenager, whatever, but she was about to miss it, and I couldn't stand it. So I intervened, and I said, that was incredible. The way she said, stop, you stopped. And then she said, come here, and you came here. Awesome. I'm impressed. And he was like, yeah, I did do a good job, didn't I? All of a sudden, he's got a certain amount of self-esteem. She softened up, and she said, Shannon's right. That was really, thank you so much for coming when I called you. And he was like, oh, okay, And then she said to him, it didn't make me feel very good when you kind of looked at me that way. And he was like, oh, I'm sorry, Mom. And he said, but I want to go play. And she said, okay, all you had to do was ask. And she said, go play, have a good time, right? And he goes on his merry way. And she looked at me, and I said, yeah, no, it's easy. We get caught up, and we miss that moment of compliance. But when you think about it, it was exactly what she wanted. She'd been sitting there saying to me, I don't have compliance, I have a surly teenager. But she was about to talk to the surly teenager instead of acknowledge that compliance. So we have to remind ourselves, and we're going to get it wrong. I get it wrong on a daily basis, and you're going to get it wrong. You are. There is no way that any of us can do this perfectly. But just like giving our kids more teaching opportunities, if we can find more opportunities when we get it right, then everything will be happier. Everything. So maybe today you blew it 5 times already today and you nagged, oh, I still have you beat, right? But how many times did you find to praise them? And can you up that? Maybe not even worry about the stopping nagging right now. It's hard to stop doing something. It's much easier to do more of something else. So how many times today have you praised your child so far? And how many times when you lay your head on that pillow tonight, how many times do you want to say that you praised your child? How many times do you want to know that you said something that caused them just that difference in that little boy's chest when I said, man, you did such a good job, and his mom said it to it, like he opened, his shoulders went back, he opened up more, and he was a happier little soul. We all want this for our kids, right? So let's not worry about the nagging, and let's not beat ourselves up about that, because I can go there. But let's see how many more times today we can praise our children, and how many times can we catch them doing something good. And if you catch them being compliant, oh my goodness, pull out the stops and tell your kids in whatever way they understand language. If you have a very little child, make sure that they get a reward that's meaningful to them and that you're pairing praise with that. If you have a child that receptively understands language, use the words and say, I'm so impressed with you. You're so amazing. I'm so proud of you. Use the words, shower them with it, and pair that with something else that's meaningful to them, because when you pair praise with something that's meaningful, eventually the praise becomes meaningful. And we definitely want to make sure we kick that into gear before they get to be teenagers, right? But compliance is there. And we have the ability to gain it with every child as long as they know that it's worth it. I have to say, years ago when I had a dog and I took it to dog training, and there was the guy who was next to me training his dog, and the dog would not come. The dog was out 5 feet, and he said, come, and the dog didn't come, and he said, come. And then he started calling it names, and eventually he's tugging the dog to get him to come, and the dog came over and he raised his hand to spank it for not coming. And the teacher came over and said, if you spank that dog for coming, that dog will never come to you. It won't happen. You won't be able to teach it. Don't do it. I know that you had to yell 5 times to get the dog to come, but reward it for coming so that the next time it only takes you 4 times to get the dog to come. And if you reward it for coming on the 4th time, it will come on the 3rd time. And eventually you will say, come, and the dog will come. And I see that every day, and I have to learn it every day. It is still not a part of my DNA, and it may not be a part of your DNA, but that's okay, because every day we get the opportunity to learn. So do the best job you can today. How many times have you praised your child, and how many times are you going to praise your child? All right, so that's our talk about compliance today. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we are going to delve into your answers to the question of the day: what really makes you mad? Let's have a mad fest. Let's get it all cleared. Beginning of the week, get it out on the table. And then I also want to talk a little bit about, I don't know if it's actually been, it's out yet, but I know that the budget for the state of California, as proposed by our governor, is supposed to be coming out this morning. I'm going to check and see if it's out. I know there was an article in the LA Times yesterday talking about the fact that there isn't enough money to fund everything, so some things aren't going to get funded. It'll be interesting to see what we're choosing to fund, those tough choices. What really matters, and we're going to hear what really matters to the governor of the state of California. Stick with us.
The Institute for Behavioral Training provides courses in applied behavior analysis for the treatment of autism. Access IBT e-learning videos on the move and learn at your own pace.
I'm going to talk a little bit about intensity.
IBT e-learning makes any location your classroom on the go.
So our objectives for today are to really learn what is autism and how is it diagnosed.
Get professional guidance with IBT face-to-face training. IBT face-to-face training courses prepare you to effectively implement ABA-based interventions. Choose between small group and one-to-one instruction. Earn BCBA supervision hours via one-to-one video conferencing.
So I had a chance to review your BIP today. You know what? It looked really good. You did a good job with it.
IBT continuing education courses. Earn credit through webinars, conferences, article reviews, and e-learning videos. You can learn more at ibehavioraltraining.com. IBT, 360 degrees of ABA training.
Welcome back to Autism Live. We're taking a look right now at your answers to the question of the day. And we asked you today, what makes you mad? What really tears your ticket? What makes you, as my friend would say, fatutzed? Okay? And I said earlier, excuse me, that I really can't stand it when people tell my child he's wrong when he's not. I can't get over it. So somebody wrote in and said, what really makes them mad is when people think that a treatment will work for their child just because it worked for others. Autism is not a condition that has a one-fit-cure-all formula. And I completely agree that it's really important that we don't overgeneralize and say that something doesn't work for everyone when it doesn't. I will say my one little asterisk is that ABA, which is a whole set of tools, when you use those tools specifically and individually for a person, it is effective, and it's effective for everyone. It doesn't matter how many let's say this. It doesn't matter if the person has a bunch of skills, they don't have a bunch of skills. It doesn't matter how old they are. It doesn't matter. A lot of times people will think, well, ABA is not effective for somebody who has a lot of skills and only needs to sharpen a few. It's absolutely effective in those circumstances. And for people who have even other issues besides autism, ABA is very effective at creating progress. Is the progress going to look the same? It is not. Everybody is going to be individual, and the program is going to be individual. My son has a very good friend who's on the autism spectrum, same exact age as he is. I think there's like 3 months that separate them. And they were both getting ABA, but their ABA looked nothing alike. They were working on entirely different things because they had different strengths and they had different weaknesses. And by the way, how you utilize the tools, think about a painting. And, you know, if we asked 8 people to put canvases together and look at the same pond and said, paint your painting, each one is going to do a different painting. And some of them are going to look vastly different than others. But the paintings will still be accomplished. And if we continue to have them painting and give them tips along the way, and it'll be different tips for different people, it's reasonable to expect that their painting is going to change and progress. Well, ABA, it's not just reasonable to expect that, it's scientifically evident. There are so many studies that show that all individuals who get proper, and it's individualized when it's proper, ABA intervention, there will be progress. The progress will always be different, but it's meaningful progress, not piddly little progress. I don't know how progress can be piddly or little. It's meaningful progress. So I will say that going to look different. The treatment is going to be vastly different, but ABA really is effective in creating progress in anyone. Okay, so I do want to say that. Somebody else who says, when someone gives my kids who are on a restricted diet, this is what really makes them mad. When someone gives my kids who are on a restricted diet something to eat or drink that I did not personally provide on the basis that a little bit won't hurt. I'm with you on this. You know, and I'll also say that when my mother, when we called my mother and told her that my son was on the autism spectrum, you know, her first instinct was that she wanted to come and visit right away. And I said to her, you know what? I need you to hold off. I need to get my ducks in a row first. I need to get my house in order. I need to figure out what we're going to do so we're solid in it, and I can't have a whole lot of opinions right now. And my mother, God bless her and rest her soul, you know, she had a lot of opinions. She's related to me. And I needed a little bit of space to be able to figure that out. So it was probably 6 months after he was diagnosed that we gave her the go ahead and said, you know, we'd started ABA therapy, and I said, you know, feel free to come and visit. And she came and visited, and by that point we were on the GFCF diet. And my mother walked in the door, and keep in mind that my son was 3, had just turned 3, and she wasn't 5 feet in the door, and she shoved a jelly bean in his mouth. Now, first of all, that's a choking hazard, okay? And he spit it right back out. Second of all, you know, not only was my son GFCF, but we weren't putting him on any candy or sugar or anything with artificial colors or artificial flavors. And I'm sure that there are fabulous jelly beans that are available that fit that requirement, but, you know, not in my mother's pocketbook, okay? And I was beyond irked. And it set up like a 2-year period of time in which my mother kept trying to sneak things into his diet and say, you know, a little bit won't hurt. And finally, one day what I said to her, because we were at a party, and she said, is he never going to get to have cake and ice cream? Is it just never going to happen? This poor child is never going to know the pleasure of cake and ice cream. And I said, he can have cake and ice cream, Mom. It's not a question of the fact that he can't have it. He can, just like a kid who has a peanut allergy. You know, you can put it in their mouth, but there's going to be a cost. For the child with a peanut allergy, it could be death. Not really worth it when you think about it. When you think, oh, this poor kid is never going to have peanut butter. Geez, it really doesn't bother me to think that, because the poor kid's going to get to live. And I said, and Jem can have these things, Mom. He really can. But then we probably won't be able to talk to him. He probably won't be able to find his words for 2 weeks, and he might tantrum for a week or 2. I don't really think it's worth it right now. And she kind of recoiled and looked like I'd slapped her. And she said, I never really thought of it that way. I think it's important to be clear with people, because people who don't think it's a big deal need to know it's a big deal. It harms our children and has the potential. If a child has an actual allergy to something, they could kill a child. These people are not using their heads. They're not informed. And I do think, as pain in the you-know-what as it is, it's part of our job here on the planet to let people like that know, because it may not be your child that it saves, but it may stop that person from going to a birthday party and giving something to a child that could potentially kill that child. I'm with you, though. People who are like that, oh, a little bit doesn't hurt. You know? They need to buy a vowel, but let's help them. Let's help them. We don't need to shame them. But when I put it that way to my mother and said, you know, there's a cost. I need you to understand that there is a cost. She got it. She got it in spades. And then was very good about not having any further infractions until the one time that I went to get on a plane and go someplace. And Emily can tell you, because I was screaming in an airport because my mother by accident fed my child pasta with real cheese on it after we'd been on the GFCF diet pristinely for a really long time. It was an accident, and she felt very bad about that, but that wasn't deliberate. Okay, another person, when answering the question, what really makes you mad, they say, when the school system fails students, when you have to move in an emergency to a different district, let finish 4 weeks, even took off school bus to make it easier for them, and now have to start over. I gotta say, I was talking to a parent this morning who said, I took my child out of school today and I don't think I'm sending him back to the school. And, you know, my question was, how much time is left? There's 3 weeks of school. And she said, I don't think I can send him back there. And so she's looking at what her options are with 3 weeks left. It's maddening. As somebody who has worked in the school system, it's maddening. And as a parent who, like this parent, you try to make things easier. When people can't make something work, it is absolutely demystifying to me. I don't know why it has to be so difficult. And I think that part of the reason why it has to be so difficult is that because people are not stopping to consider what really matters. any time that I have ever been on a school campus where somebody was focused on what truly matters, which is keeping the children safe and helping them to get a good education. That's really what matters in a school setting. Keeping them safe and helping them to get a good education. When that is what matters, it's amazing what can happen. But when other things become what's important, like ego, status, money, and other ridiculous things, that's when we have problems. And it overshadows those two things that are most important. I'm sorry if you're having to pull your child out with only 4 weeks left to go, but like the mom I was talking to this morning, if you have to, you have to. And I feel for you. I absolutely feel for you, but I applaud you for having the strength to do that, because I'm sure that there are people who are going to be standing there saying, oh, there's only 4 weeks left. But if your child's not safe and if they're not getting a good quality education, you really got to stop and ask yourself what matters. And if other people can't do it, then I applaud you for being the person who says, I'm going to be the deciding factor here about what really matters. And if it's not happening here, we'll find someplace else where it is happening. Another person who, when answering the question, what really makes you mad, somebody who wrote in and said, people who think autism is devastating and want it to be cured forever. This is a hard part of the conversation, right? And it depends on where you are in this process. I certainly understand this sentiment now, but in my early days, and we talked about this with Bill Stillman last week, in my early days, I was one of those people who was mad and a little devastated because I didn't know what the big picture was and I didn't have something to help my child. And he was not happy. He was not a happy little camper. And I think we have to be respectful on both sides. There are many of us who have realized all the incredible gifts that are available on the autism spectrum when our kids get what they need. But there are a whole lot of people who haven't had that equation yet. And they're upset, and they should be. So we'll be patient with all sides of that equation and remind everybody that it's important that we fight hard for people to get those services so that it doesn't have to be devastating and that their child doesn't have to be unhappy. And the last person that I was going to, there's several more, but another person who said, be autistic, it's perfect love, my routines and lows. I'm not sure that I completely understand what the sentence is, but I'm thrilled that you're happy with who you are and where you are. That's really the key for everybody, right? Another person who says, what makes them really mad when people are rude in public when your child has a meltdown. They don't see this disability so that they think you are a bad parent. Yes, I swear I'm going to have signs made, we're going to give them away at some point, that say, other people's opinions of my parenting is none of my business. It's hard. It's hard to separate ourselves and our ego from that, but people are going to think that we're horrible. People think that I'm horrible because my child doesn't have cake and ice cream, you know? Other people's opinions of my parenting are none of my business. And sometimes I just have to keep saying that to myself. You know, in the middle of a meltdown, I'd be like, other people's opinions of my parenting are none of my business, just over and over and over again, because it's true. It's true. What they think and what they know, it isn't the truth. So I can't allow that to dictate what I do or I don't do. Really, really hard for your feelings not to be hurt when people are behaving that way when you're having a challenge, right? You'd rather have support. But the truth is, you know, we're not going to get that from everybody. So we go to where we do get the support. And then there are more things written, but that's all the time we have for that. We're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to come back and finish out the show. Stick with us.
Learn the early signs of autism today, because an early diagnosis can make a lifetime of difference.
Hey, I made your favorite.
With real egg noodles and bite-sized chicken,
Campbell's chicken noodle soup is the one kids love. Good.
Come and get this on.
Thanks. Stream your favorite content when you want. AT&T.
He didn't speak till he was almost 5. There's a time when my wife and I just didn't think we'd ever have a conversation with him, and now he can build and program computers from scratch. We kind of really consider Reese a huge success story.
Sounds like you got a pretty good dad too.
Yeah, he is a really awesome dad.
What a great family, Reese and Andrew Bowen, and I got to meet the real mom the other day, who's a fabulous, fabulous photographer. But what a lovely family. What a lovely young man. I did want to go back. We had somebody write in on a live feature. They said, "Hi, Shannon. To answer your question about what makes me mad is when my son's behaviors are dismissed and they say that's just part of the autism, and they act like there's nothing that can be done to help him. Like when he zones out, he needs sensory input, and they just say it's part of the package. Grr." Yeah. I hate this on both sides of the equation. I hate it when they act like there's nothing that can be done, because that is pure and simple ignorance. We know that there are interventions for every behavior that's out there. And if it's preventing the child from accessing anything that you and they and the team want them to have access to, there are interventions. That's what that Skills BIP Builder is for. Don't let them get away with that BS, right? Ooh, you get me all hepped up here, right? Because that is, I'm with you on that grr thing. That's somebody who doesn't know or is lazy. And if they're lazy, there's not a whole lot we can do for them except shame them into doing their work. And if they don't know, then let's educate them. Let them take a look at the Skills BIP Builder so that you can find an intervention for, and sounds like you already know what works is that he needs sensory input when he starts to zone out, and that they just don't want to put him on the sensory diet and actually have to follow through. Get it written into the IEP and make them. Oh, that just makes me mad with you. And then the other side of it, because it's IEP time, we're all going to the IEPs. What I love is sometimes when they're like, oh, well, there's nothing we can do about that. Hands up in the air. Oh, poor us. There's nothing we can do about that. And then other times when they just expect your child to get over those things with absolutely no intervention. I remember when they were starting to fade his aid, and they're like, well, we're just going to have the aid leave at noon. And I said to them in all sincerity, well, good. I'll just ask him to stop having autism at noon. That works, right? Because it's on a schedule for you of when he needs help. He just won't need any afternoon. That's how we'll do it. That makes it, what? Yeah, it's kind of mystifying. Right? But in any case, I think you're right to be mad and frustrated with these people. But I would encourage you, get it written into the IEP that he's on a sensory diet, and that get the BIP built for that, and say that, sensory diet when this and so happens, or before it happens, so that it doesn't even happen. Make them work. Crack that whip and make them do what they need to do. I'll tell you, a couple of times when I've gone in and thought, oh no, I'm going to make them do something, what I've been met with is a teacher who goes, okay, I didn't know I could do that. And then heard back and said, hey, that worked. Cool. I'm so glad to know that, because I've got another kid that I want to try that out with. So don't be afraid to teach a teacher, because if they're a good teacher, they'll want to learn. And if they're a bad teacher, then you identified them as somebody you're not going to go back to, right? Frustrating. But I'm glad that we had a chance today to talk about what makes us mad, because once you talk about it, then you can get into action, and then you get into progress. And progress really is the name of the game. And when we talk about focusing on what matters, progress is really at the core of everything, right? That we be making progress towards our goals, that we help our children make progress to their goals, that we help our students make progress towards their goals, that we're all working for what truly, truly matters. All right, we are out of time, unfortunately, but I did want to mention again that the budget is coming out today, the California state budget, and an article appeared in the LA Times. Title was "Budget Talks Won't Be Easy for the Governor." He has said that that there's going to be a struggle because they're going to have to figure out what to fund and what not to fund because there's not enough money to go around. I'm really hopeful to see that in their Healthy Families and the Medi-Cal program. I'm hoping that he will prioritize getting those families ABA. They're the ones who had it, were promised that they would continue to have it, and then decisions were made and they lost their services. Unconscionable. The cruelest of cruel things to do. So we'll continue to look for that. We'll report on that tomorrow. Don't forget, ask Dr. Doreen tomorrow. We're taking your questions even now. Get them sent in. She's going to be with us this week, but she won't be with us next week. So pile on those questions. Then we're having Vince Redman, family, marriage, and family therapist, going to be with us for Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. Promises to be a great show. You're not going to want to miss it. And make sure that when you're writing in through the night, reference who it is that you'd like to ask the question. I'd like to hold to that when I possibly can. When we don't have enough time with Dr. Doreen, we spread your questions out to other BCBAs. And I kind of have a backlog from last week, but we're going to get through as many questions as we can this week. All right. We are totally out of time, but I want to thank you so much for being here. Remember, praise your kid more today than you did yesterday, and please give them your kiddos a hug from me. Bye-bye for now.